Hey guys, how are you all? Hope everyone's all good. Just a video on Sugar Ray Robinson and how he would fare up in today's era of boxing. Now, you see, here's the thing. People should know by now who are regular to my channel that Ray Robinson, for me, is one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time, pound for pound fighter in the world. The only dispute I have is Muhammad Ali, Ray Robinson, due to Muhammad Ali's higher caliber of opposition, beating better fighter than Ray Robinson beat. But obviously, Ray Robinson went up in several weight classes. He was ranked at featherweight, up to light heavyweight. How many weight divisions is that today? Do the counting. Do the counting. It's like Prince Nassim Hamid fighting David Haye or something, or heavier, Evander Holyfield. It's just unheard of. But I mean, Ray Robinson's been ranked in featherweight, went up to light heavy. He's done amazing things, won several world titles, and back in them days there were less weight classes. And the question I want to ask is, what do you guys think about Ray Robinson in today's era? And I'm going to address it and talk about a bit about it, because everyone knows I'm a real big fan of the old school boxing. Some people are more fans of today's boxing. I'm just a type of person that I like old school stuff generally, so I've got a little bit of bias, but I try not to be too biased. I can detach myself as a fan and as an analyst, and I'm going to do that today. Now, for me as an analyst to even mention Mayweather and Pacquiao and these guys in the same name as Robinson is disrespectful, but that's me as a fan I'm talking. But I'm going to take myself out as a fan and really look at this from an analytical point of view. And when you look at someone like Sugar Ray Robinson, the first thing is sports science, which everybody wants to talk about sports science. Now, I'm quite lean right now. I've done a good cut. I'd like to think I don't know everything about sports science, but I know a good amount. I know a considerable amount about diet. I know how to cut up. If you give me a fighter and tell me, I've done it on myself, right? So if you give me a fighter and tell me, get that fighter trim for a fight, I can get that guy very, very lean for a fight. I know what sort of exercises to do. I know you need to build the legs, the core. I know the exercises needed. I know what will decrease speed, what will increase power, etc., etc. Sports science. And having done everything, I'm gonna say this on record: sports science, it makes a difference, but not that much of a difference. Not in boxing. Not in boxing. Maybe in other sports, in mixed martial arts, I would say it makes a hell of a difference. But in boxing, you see, in boxing, speed is the most important thing in boxing, in my opinion. Of natural, I'm not talking about timing and technical. I'm talking about raw boxing ability. I think speed is more important than power. I think that power can help you, but I think you can be as fast as you want. Sorry, if you could be you could be as powerful as you want, but if you haven't got the speed to catch your opponent, it means nothing. Whereas if you're exceptionally fast but don't have the power, exceptionally fast, you can make do in boxing and you can actually become a really good fighter. So, in my opinion, I think speed's very important. And I think in sports science, it's difficult. How do you make yourself faster? There's not really much you can do. You can increase your power, but your power may increase at the expense of a little bit of speed. And this is what I'm saying. Like, we look at the top pound for pound fighter in the world at the moment. It is Floyd Mayweather Jr. still. Manny Pacquiao may be number one right now after the Algieri and Bradley win. Mayweather's fought Maidana twice, but generally speaking, Mayweather is number one on most people's pound for pound list. And it is disrespectful to take him off that. He doesn't deserve that. I think he deserves his props, where it is. And I think Mayweather is still, for me, number one fighter in pound for pound. But look, you put Ray Robinson in today's era, okay? And the thing I was saying about Mayweather is Mayweather doesn't really do weights like Manny Pacquiao did with Alex Ariza, like Amir Khan does with Tony Brady, like Canelo Alvarez does, like Timothy Bradley does. A lot of fighters do a lot of, like Maidana does it. Mayweather doesn't do that, and yet he's still the pound for pound king. So, and he's old as well. He's old. He's not young. You take Mayweather from 5 years ago and put him in the spot now. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's head and shoulders above the rest, head and beyond anything. Obviously, there's the Pacquiao situation, but let's leave that to a side. But if we were to take Ray Robinson and put him in today's era, I want to talk about this because a few things came into my mind. What separates that era and this era? Now, the first thing is technology. And I don't mean technology in terms of fighters and building a supreme fighter. I mean technology in terms of video access. Ray Robinson was 128-1 at one point in his career. The only loss he had to was Jake LaMotta, and he avenged that loss several times and beat Jake LaMotta several times. So really, you look at him at a certain point in his career, he was 128 wins, and he'd only lost to one fighter. Never ever lost to a fighter who he wasn't able to avenge at that point. And Sugar Ray Robinson, he never studied his opponents. Wow. You know, I mean, he might have had a bit of footage here and there, tried to gather something, but on a whole, Ray Robinson, I'm sure back in them days, there wasn't really much footage in these early days. You know, cameras and being able to get a film and, you know, postage, and things were a lot different in them days. Things were a lot different. Things are a lot easier now. You have internet access. All, say, someone like, I don't know, Keith Thurman is about to fight Robert Guerrero, for example. Let's just say that fight was getting made. Keith Thurman can go on the internet. Robert Guerrero versus Floyd Mayweather. He's probably already seen it on TV about 1,000 times. And he knows, he has a general knowledge of how good Floyd Mayweather is. He knows Robert Guerrero lost to Mayweather. He knows that Robert Guerrero beat Andre Berto. He will have seen Andre Berto, if not Robert Guerrero. If he's not seen that fight, he'll have seen someone else. And you have a better understanding of the sport through what you see on television. But Ray Robinson didn't have none of this. He just trained to the best of his ability, and he didn't really have much knowledge of other fighters. He just had what he could see with his bare eyes around him. And the same goes for the other old school fighters. And it's like, if you brought Ray Robinson to this era and you implement sports science, right, which could make a bit of a difference. Excuse me. You implement things such as you know, this technology that we've got with the internet, and you implement that into someone like Ray Robinson, and so he can see more fights, and he can study more stuff, and he can study more old school fighters, and he can study the fighters that have been. I mean, if you put Ray Robinson into this era, imagine how much he could get ready for a fight. Maybe I'm just talking absolute waffles, right, and rubbish, I don't know. But it's just something that I wanted to touch upon, is that Ray Robinson was in a totally different era, and it's incredible what he did against the fighters that he beat and the record that he had. And they say that Ray Robinson's era was more difficult, so to speak, than today's era of boxing, you know? And I think a reason for this is because back in them days, of the days of Muhammad Ali, Ray Robinson, even Ray Leonard, there was more money in boxing. Well, no, not more money in boxing. I don't know if that's entirely true, but boxing on a whole was a more widely watched sport, and people in them days wanted to become a fighter. You know, if you look at the days in Joe Louis and how famous Joe Louis was in comparison to how famous the fighters are today. I mean, you bring Chino Maidana, walk him down the street, nobody's gonna know him. You know, bring Mayweather here, people will stop him. Loads of people will meet him, and he could potentially stop everything. But there will be a lot of people who will say, "Who is Floyd?" In the UK, I'm talking. Bring Muhammad Ali over here, even today, in today's era. Who doesn't know Ali? Bring Tyson. Who won't know Tyson? Everybody will recognize him. So the point I'm making, right, is all this stuff. It's really interesting to look at, and I think that the two eras are just like totally different. And back in them days, people wanted to become fighters, whereas now people want to become footballers, basketballers. Boxing, a lot of the times, is a sport that people just end up in rather than dreaming from an early age, you know, and training since they're like 5 years old. You don't really get that as much as you used to back in the old days. And I think that the talent pool was better then. And I think that it could potentially become, boxing can still become what it was back then. We can still have an era like that. But in order for it to become like that, the whole landscape of boxing has to change. Boxing has to go back to, in my opinion, rather than being a pay-per-view sport and concentrating on the limited audience, boxing needs to concentrate on a whole on building a huge fan base. You know, that's what boxing is. But I see it being very difficult because of the money the money that's in that can be involved in boxing at times. In today's era, I mean, pay-per-view is like synonymously tied with boxing more than any other sport, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. It's like we look at Canelo. How big could Canelo Alvarez have been? You know, in Mexico. Generally, you know, he's not that big in Mexico. People think he's like huge. Canelo might be big in Mexico, but I mean, how big is he? I mean, how many followers does he have on Twitter? He can't be that famous, you know. And it's like, is he as famous as Julio Cesar Chavez was in his prime? I don't know. But it's like, you look at Mayweather, and it's like, is he as famous as like Tyson Ali? And I don't think he is, you know? He's nowhere near. And I think that boxing, for the talent pool in boxing to increase, we have to also, we have to go back to mainstream television. We have to target more the mainstream people, because boxing is just right now, too many hardcore fans, not enough casual fans. I think what Eddie Hearn is doing is really good for the sport in British boxing. But back to what I'm saying about Ray Robinson, right? So I've gone way off track. I just wanted to compare the two eras. I think Ray Robinson in this era, I mean, how would he fare up against, say, Gennady Golovkin? I think he could outbox Golovkin. I think he could outbox Golovkin. I think he's got power. Keep Golovkin off him. You know, just too fast, too much skill that Robinson had. Put him up against Mayweather at a welterweight. Robinson was a beast at welter. A beast. Pacquiao, Maidana, Khan, Thurman. I mean, who is there? You know, our welterweight, Canelo, Lara. I think Ray Robinson would beat all these guys. And in all honesty, I don't think any one of them could even, in Ray Robinson's early days, good prime. Robinson, 147, 154, no problem. I don't think anyone comes close to beating Robinson. I mean, I watched a video once of Sugar Ray, and you guys have to search this video up. I lost it, I can't find it anymore. Type in Sugar Ray Robinson prime, and it's like a yellow video. It's like a yellowish tinted video, and it's in the corner of a ring, and you can see Ray Robinson fighting. You can see his back muscles, and you can see how toned and how ripped his body was. And for them days to be that ripped, you know what I mean? He had a sick physique, and he's fighting, and you can see how he's this beautiful boxer 1 minute, then all of a sudden he transforms into this animal, and he's attacking, bang, 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 and it just doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop, and you can tell how hard his punches are. I mean, it's just wow. You know, it's just like wow. It's like if you could get Keith One-Time Thurman, his power, right, in 147, switch that into Floyd Mayweather in terms of thinking, and then you have the speed and the explosiveness and the combinations of, say, a Manny Pacquiao. It's like, that's what we have in Ray Robinson. You look at it and you think, you put him in today's era, could anybody match him for the overall entirety of what he was? He was a beast, man. He was a real animal, and I don't think that sports science would save anybody in today's era. I really don't think that it would make a difference at all when you put these guys in with that beast that was Ray Robinson. If you brought him in today's era, if we had some sort of time machine, or we could just bring him, and it's always going to be an ongoing debate, you know, comparing different eras. But it's just something I like to do. If you don't like it, you know, you don't have to watch. I think that Ray Robinson was a phenomenal fighter, one of my favorite fighters of all time for sure. And it's interesting pound for pound. Heavyweights is difficult to compare because of the weight differences, and there's certain things that you can argue about. But pound for pound is interesting because how much can sports science make a difference in, do you know what I mean, in one weight class? You're going to weigh the same, you know? Let me know what you think, comment section below, make sure you subscribe as always. How do you think Ray Robinson would have fared in today's era of boxing? Do you think there's anybody out there in today's era of boxing from 147 to 160 that could beat Ray Robinson? And in what fashion? In a bit, guys.